If you consider yourself an empath or someone that can feel other people's energy, then I believe this video will completely shift your life from the inside out. By the end of this video, you will think twice about even calling yourself an empath once you learn more about the shadow side of it and how labeling yourself as an empath is actually keeping you in old patterns, living in a shadow of subconscious patterns that are keeping you disempowered and also keeping you in a certain victim mentality. Now, first off, let me say that I'm actually making this video to clarify something that went mega viral on Instagram. I put out a video that was from a recent live event where I was speaking on stage, and I had no idea that that video was going to get over 4 million views on Instagram. And it was something that just kind of took on a life of its own. And any video that goes very viral, there's going to be two sides of the coin. On one side, there's a lot of people that think it's awesome, and on the other side, there's people that are very polarized by it. They were very triggered by the video. Now, in the video, what I explain is how empaths and narcissists tend to attract each other. From one side of the spectrum, we have an empath, someone that can feel other people's energy. And what happens is they tend to attract narcissists. Narcissists are people that don't feel other people's energy, but use other people as what is called narcissistic supply in order to feel validated, whole, and complete. Now, what they do is they normally manipulate in order to get their needs met. Now, the point that I made in the video was about how empaths move from the bottom 3 chakras in childhood because of some type of trauma, and they move out of their root, sacral, and solar plexus into their third eye, and they become super intuitive so they can connect to everyone else, to tune to everyone, and that's how they get their needs met, by tuning to everyone else to see, how do I need to be, how do I need to shift myself to ease tension or to get other people's approval or validation. Now, in that video that I just kind of expressed to you, there was a moment where what I said was, by the way, this was it was a 60-second clip on Instagram, so there was more to it, but what people heard on Instagram was that it was a superpower. And that superpower, there were comments in there that talked about how there was a glorification of it being a superpower. And I really looked at this because, by the way, in the video I say it's a curse and a superpower. Many empaths have this amazing ability to tune to other people in a way that is trauma-based and does have very harsh negative side effects. But I've also noticed that there's a lot of empaths or people that can feel other people's energy that are very good at healing or listening or therapists. There's some side effect of that I've noticed, that some people benefit from their work in that way. Now, not to say that it outweighs the idea of the curse, but regardless, here's what I became aware of when I saw a certain comment that talked about how it was glorifying that by calling it a superpower. First off, my ego got flared, and I was like, well, I also talk about how it's a curse, and it wasn't something I really emphasized. It was just a little small thing I said within a whole minute and a half. But I really looked at this. I started doing more research. I started looking at the therapy behind it, the psychotherapy behind empath and narcissism. And it took a lot for me to really look at myself to see how this acts within myself, because what I became aware of is that there is very often within this whole empath narcissist dynamic there is this grandiosity around being an empath. There is this desire to be special, this desire to also, in a way, feel like a victim. I remember when my dad divorced my stepmom when I was 15 years old, and my childhood I didn't really have much of because I was always kind of controlled and all of that. If you've been watching my channel, then you know, and you're like, okay, Aaron. But there was this feeling of almost like my childhood didn't really mean anything unless I was able to actually almost feel like a victim in a way. Like I was wronged in childhood, it wasn't fair, life's not fair. It was almost like there was this subconscious addiction to being a victim. And in an interesting way, I can tell that this is also a common thing that happens in spirituality when people go through a spiritual awakening. And many empaths have been through a spiritual awakening. And when you go through a spiritual awakening and no one understands you, it can be very easy to say, well, they're just asleep. I'm special because I'm awake. I'm special because I'm an empath and I can feel other people's energy. I am more selfless than anyone else, which is grandiose. Grandiosity is an energy of this image that is overlaid in order to feel significant. And really what this is a significance wound. And the significance wound is wanting to feel significant, wanting to feel special. And an empath has a survival mechanism that was built as a kid because mom and dad may have not been physically or emotionally available, and it may have felt like there was tension in the household. And when the empath or the person didn't feel safe, they moved their energy into their third eye to become super intuitive. And then what happens is they then change themselves to get validation and approval from other people. And the challenge with this is as they change themselves and as they abandon themselves, they are manipulating other people into getting their own needs met. They're manipulating other people into getting their needs met in a similar way to the narcissist, but instead of taking, they give. And the challenge with this is then it's like I'm giving, I'm so significant, I am selfless, a lot of times there's this victim energy. And I had to look at this within myself because I could definitely see that even calling an empath a superpower is a way, I guess it was the other side of the coin to where a lot of people just believe that are empaths, that it's a curse and there's a lot of shame. So a superpower is a grandiose way to feel above it all, to feel like I am special. The challenge is that when it's I am special and there's that lack of awareness, there's this subconscious ego that is activated that ends up in the shadow, ends up doing more harm than good. Now let me show you this I made this little thing just to show you the difference. Now when we talk about glorification, when we talk about grandiosity, the narcissist is very grandiose. And the grandiosity is like an image, like an inflated image of self in order to feel significant. Now on the other side of this, with that of the empath and the narcissist have the same core wound. They just have different means of getting their needs met. So what the empath does is it has a low sense of self and a glorified sense of other. And it puts everybody else on a pedestal. And in order to get and to feel worthy, it has to glorify itself subconsciously, passive-aggressively, in order to then feel worthy. Now, the narcissist has a glorified false sense of self. Both are false sense of self, by the way. You see, also the empath expands its energetic field to include everybody. So your tension is my tension. Your validation is my validation. It's the empath is literally trying to source. You could say this is called narcissistic supply. You could call that empathic validating supply. The empath wants to get the validation and approval of others because it has a glorified sense of what it means in order to feel significant, in order to feel whole. And the challenge with both of these is they're both rooted in a sense of trauma, and they're both rooted in a sense of manipulation, in a sense of lack of authenticity. And unless there is the awareness and the leaning into the shadow and the process of individuation, people stay in their traumas, people stay in the toxic side of this. So what I'm going to do is, because I believe this is so important, I'm going to do a workshop on this exact concept, on individuation, on empathic healing, letting go of the label of being what is called an empath, and understanding that label is keeping the trauma alive. It's keeping the energy activated inside of the body. It's keeping this kind of victim significance energy alive. And I'm gonna do it inside that of the upcoming 21-day Confidence Love Challenge. I was gonna be doing this workshop that's like a replay of an inner child thing that I did. I'm gonna go live and actually do and bring people through an individuation process for this specifically. So if you wanna join that, by the way, all you gotta do is click the link below. You'll see it in the comments. But join the 21-day Confidence Love Challenge if you want access to that. It's a 21-day process for being in your own frame, releasing codependent patterns, feeling confident and trusting yourself, knowing as you do that, you become more emotionally available, you heal anxious and avoidant attachment style, and you start to feel safe within your own body. So if you want to join that, click the link below, join. Thousands of us are going to be going through the process together very soon, and I hope to see you on the inside. Now let's talk for a minute about parentification. Parentification is where, as a kid, mom and dad weren't able to meet your needs, and what you decided is that you had to parent your own parents or manage. You had to take control in order to get things done, in order to find safety. And what happens through looking at the psychotherapy of this and the different research I've done over the last couple of days, what I find interesting is what it is said that happens is if mom and dad weren't able to meet your needs, and there was a lot of problem, you had to be the caregiver, you had to be someone that was giving, somebody that was like mediating, the middle person between mom and dad arguing, or your siblings, then a lot of times there's this desire, this codependent desire to fix other people. And that's maybe why you might attract people into your life that you feel like you need to fix, because literally you get something out of that. You get to feel like you're valuable. You get to feel like you're worthy. And it's getting the supply from someone else, because then it's like you know your role. So the challenge with parentification is that then also there's like an inner child part of the self that then creates this ideal version of mom and dad that's almost godlike, that then it tries to live up to because it didn't have a healthy part of a relationship with mom or dad. So the challenge with this, and a lot of the process of healing that comes from this, is in the recognition of this it's a more humble middle way of understanding and integrating this past emotion. Integrating and individuating. To individuate from mom and dad is to see the trauma and the stuff that you went through as a kid, to be able to separate yourself from it by integrating the past, by letting yourself feel it to heal it, but by also feeling the separation between you and mom or you and dad. What a lot of empaths and narcissists, I believe, are inner child parts of themselves that haven't developed past 5 to 9 years old. For a toddler, it may be even younger, because think of a toddler. For a narcissist, think of toddlers. Many times they're little narcissists. They're like, no, mine, yes. They want to dictate reality and get what they want. And what I personally believe through the coaching and studying this energy is that a lot of times maybe there was a trauma or something that happened in that age range where then parts of the ego didn't develop past that. So in order to heal it, something very powerful to do is to do inner child healing work, where you literally connect to that little part of yourself inside of yourself to heal. And then also what you do is you look at individuating from mom and dad, individuating from being the caregiver, the person that has to mitigate the family, and you start taking care of self. Now, self, not including everyone around you, and not including this grandiose sense of self of I'm a special superpower starseed. This is also, by the way, the whole starseed thing. I'm a starseed from the Pleiades. I went through a spiritual awakening, everyone else is sheep. That's grandiosity. That's grandiose. And it's a way for the ego to feel more significant and to feel more special, instead of a more humble approach of connecting to this energy. So one of the things you can do to powerfully heal is inner child healing, understanding that the cure to this is individuation. It is getting inside of your own body and feeling to heal it. Feel it to heal it, and feeling and asking your inner child what it needs, what it didn't receive. And what you can then do is, like, setting boundaries for an empath is a very powerful way to start to individuate into a new you. Setting boundaries with what's okay, what's not okay. Setting boundaries and checking in with your body before you do something. Notice when you're abandoning yourself for other people. And instead of abandoning yourself, start to make the choice for taking care of the part of yourself that maybe you would normally neglect in order to make everybody else happy. And understand that this process of healing is really about feeling it to heal it, but also the awareness of these aspects that are normally hidden in the subconscious. The significance wound of wanting to feel significant and being aware of it. I find myself, I can tell that a lot of my success on YouTube was fueled by a sense of wanting to add value to everyone else, which I don't think is an inherently malicious thing, but I can tell that it was like there was a feeling of feeling small and insignificant. So if I could add more value to people and become indispensable of someone that would just add so much free value on YouTube, that then I could feel fulfilled. One other thing they say about kids that are parentified, that, you know, the parentification side of things, is that they have these kids, they grow up and they have a very hard time letting themselves enjoy life. They have a hard time having fun. They have a hard time letting themselves, like giving to themselves or even self-love. I mean, the cure to all of this really is self-love. But which self are we talking about? The inflated, grandiose self, or the self on the inside that we can connect to from our hearts? And how can we go through meditation processes for also feeling this love? Now, if you haven't checked it out yet, I have a free inner child meditation that will help you get to the core of your own inner child energy and heal it from the inside out. It's very powerful. It's completely free. You can go ahead and click the link below to download that meditation. Go to aarondowdy.com/child. And then also, if you haven't learned the frame technique, it's one of the most powerful techniques I've ever learned for individuation. It's one of the most powerful techniques I've ever learned for being in my own frame. And it completely changes your life from the inside out. Check that video out right here.